Thank you for the privilege to be here in front of this august group today. Indeed, many years ago, in 1977, I was plucked out of high school by Milwaukee School of Engineering, and I would say that was the beginning of my servant leadership pathway, just right there at that moment. And last summer, I returned to MSOE after having become a living tree of their stewardship, which they planted in me. And I returned to offer some fruit to give back after all those years of being in my career of civil engineering. I had many experiences, and what I want to share regarding stewardship today is that I can look back on my career and see that I was able to be a steward of the golden rule, because my career had a very large international facet to it. I've been on all 7 continents and over 70 countries, and I had so many opportunities to work really collaboratively, different cultures and different people in different contexts, and even to represent being the steward of America as a servant of, I think, the greatest principle, to be the greatest of all, you be the servant of all, and humble yourself. And you even flow like the principle of water, which always goes to the lowest place where it's needed the most. And so I was in difficult situations, difficult circumstances, difficult projects, especially in terms of relationships and maybe not being on the same page and not being on common ground, as this is so prevalent today, much more than it was in my career 25 years ago. I felt, even now looking back, that it's sort of, being a forerunner and for these kinds of things. So looking back, I want to share with you a story that's a true story. I was working at the time in Moscow, and I was the head of a project management office there. And this was right after the breakup of the Soviet Union. And during the Cold War times, Central Asia became a focal point for the building of facilities and infrastructure that was really dedicated towards harming humanity. And after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and some of these countries became independent nations again, they did not want this infrastructure and this legacy and this kind of thing to remain, in their country. They didn't want their scientists and engineers purposed towards destructive things. And so they reached out, many of them did reach out to the United States government for financial aid and for technical aid in repurposing scientific and engineering facilities from places, I'm only speaking the truth here, that were dedicated to weapons of mass destruction and repurposing them to collaborative enterprises. And they now have a desire where they wanted to contribute collaboratively in terms of science and engineering with their champions of their people. They want to partner with the West and to break that spiral of that mistrust and the enemy and all of the things that don't bring anyone forward. And so I was chosen to be the project manager for responding to one of these places that had been like a secret city. And this particular place, their focus was on biological weapons of mass destruction. And so they would design and create pathogens that would harm humanity and that would be released into the environment, and for which there was no antidote there, but they did not want this to continue on in the country. And so the United States government said, yes, we'll support this project, we'll send a project team, we'll send you money to transition to being collaborative, to collaborating with us, not against us. And so I had the privilege of being the project manager, and I was so sent to a remote place in Central Asia. And I came with a team of experts in this area, and there was about a dozen of us, and we were received by about a dozen of the Institute's scientists and by the director, and we were all, so this was a project kickoff meeting, right? And but we have persons that spoke Russian, and then we spoke English, so there were State Department translators. It was a translated, facilitated meeting. And the director of the Institute began the meeting and welcomed everyone. But what I should say first is that there was a very large table, and he sat at the head of it at one end. But when I came in and my team came in, we just sat wherever we sat. I didn't consciously think, oh, I'm the head. I need to sit at the head of the table. And it never even occurred to me. I actually just sat somewhere in the middle. And my team filled in. And another gentleman, another engineer on the team actually happened to sit directly across from the director. Now, you have to think, this is a different culture, it's a different time. It was 25 years ago, the mindset, and there was really the old model of, authoritative leadership. And so the director of the Institute began directing this conversation and to the person sitting opposite him in the chair, which was another man. And one day, when it was his turn to speak, he said, I'm not the project manager, I'll let, he pointed to me and looked at me, and my team looked at me, and I'll let, this is the project manager here. I was the only woman in the room, and honestly, it was like a moment where I felt there was a shockwave that entered the room, and that they were shocked, actually, that a woman would be ahead of the America would send a woman to be ahead of the project, and I felt difficulty. I read the body language and the expression on people's faces was, how could a woman be worthy to lead this project? This is such complex information and such I didn't feel welcome, in other words. It suddenly felt like ice cold, right? How we can feel that in your body, you even get a cold chill, right? So I felt that. Nevertheless, I'm the project manager at the time, and was the one to speak, but of course it was a team on our end. And this is where I had to really apply the golden rule, but you're not thinking of it in the moment, because as a true servant leader, it's built into you, it's inherent, it's something natural. And I had to really decide, this is an opportunity not to do unto others what, not to continue the same element of mistrust or distrust, or even starting out that way, but to change the equation immediately by, in my mind, maintaining it's not about me, and don't take it personally. That's not the proper framework. To respond, that's not a response. Responding is the alternative, the proper response. And so, I let that moment pass, and I just decided to build trust, to be honest, to be open, to not have any secrets. All the things that were the antithesis of what this Cold War represents, right? Secrecy and deception and subterfuge, and I'm going to use this to get something for myself. I'm going to do what it takes to get ahead and really right and all of those things. But I just continued with the project and its unfolding as if none of that mattered. Almost really as if it isn't even real, it doesn't even exist. And by not actually trying to prove anything, I really didn't outwardly say, well, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove that I am worthy and all win. And I didn't have an epic cause in my mindset, to my own mind. It wasn't that. I just decided to be natural and be myself, but exhibit the qualities that I would want to be returned unto me. Even if they're not or weren't, I'd be still going to give that out and prove the law, that the law does work, and that maybe over time there will be a return that is commensurate with doing unto others what you want them to do unto you. And sure enough, 2 years later, the project was completed successfully. The Institute had been repurposed to collaborative entity with the West. And on the day that we met in the same room where we started out, the Institute director indeed had become a friend. And he was so appreciative of this Institute being turned around that he gave me as a gift, a parting gift, this is the compass from a Russian submarine. Wow. And I was worried when he said he had a gift because as a federal officer, we're not allowed to take gifts. You know? And so, but I've decided I could accept this gift as a token of, he said, good leadership, good direction, and as something negative and then turned into something positive. And I think that's the fruit of the golden rule, and the compass is our heart that leads us to those places where our one drop makes a difference. Yes. Thank you very much.